Hello guys, welcome to the Drop Ball Football Podcast. I'm joined today by Sikander and Ryan, an Arsenal fan and a West Ham fan either side of me. We're going to discuss quite a few things today, starting with the roundup of the second weekend of Barclays Premier League fixtures. So we'll start with the first game of the weekend, which was Arsenal against Burnley. Finished 2-1 to Arsenal, so kind of be happy about that. New faces on show, David Luiz, Ceballos was a full debut, wasn't it?
Yeah, he started there.
Absolute mustard as well. What game?
So 2-1 Arsenal went ahead.
And obviously Pepe came on.
Pepe as well, yeah. So they went ahead through Lacazette. Burnley fought back to equalise through their main man Ashley Barnes, but they won it through Aubameyang. Great goal for Aubameyang to win it. So guys, what do you make of the game? It's a tight result, wasn't it?
I think it was a good result. Arsenal had a couple of youngsters there. You know, we had in the middle Guendouzi and Willock. You know,
Reece Nelson as well.
Yeah, Ceballos. He obviously started new, fresh into the Premier League, and we also started with Nelson. So I felt like it was the lineup was a bit, you know. You had to have a lot of trust into that lineup, and they did well.
They did do well. I agree with that. Ceballos is starting to look like he will be the fulcrum of that side.
Yeah.
And he looks. I don't think they've had an outstandingly decent ball playing midfielder since Santi Cazorla has left. So I think it's nice for them to have someone that is great in link up and progressive play and can string some very, very decent passes. Yeah. I'm also impressed with Pepe because with his stature, I mean, I know he's absolutely lightning quick, but with his stature, I thought he would have trouble coping with the physicality of the Premier League. But so far, it hasn't seemed to faze him. So I think that is very interesting.
So far, so good for me. It's funny you should say about Ceballos because I was watching Arsenal Fan TV and DT, it was, he said that he reminds him of Cazorla. So, yeah. Popular comparison.
He does have that Arteta and Cazorla vibe to him at the minute. I mean, it's early days, but you can see it there. He's quite nippy, very technically gifted on the ball. And, you know, I think a bit surprisingly to me, he was actually very disciplined that game.
Yes.
You know, he wasn't exactly playing like a number 10 role. He had to do some defending as well, and
versatility on show.
Him, Guendouzi and Willock, I think they did really well as working as a unit in that middle.
So something that's nice to see from Arsenal now is that like you look at their bench and you're not actually that scared. Like say for example, if Kolasinac goes down, when he's back fit, you've got TNA lurking about and vice versa. Like if Ceballos goes down, you've got Guendouzi, you've got Torreira. It's nice to have because before, when like a player got injured, like obviously when Jack Wilshere was still with you, where he was injured so constantly, like central midfielders were like gold dust to you. And like say for example, Cazorla, not the best injury record either. When he used to get injured, it was basically left on Ramsey. So it's good to see that you now have those rotation options and a bit of depth that you can rely on. Yeah, which is
definitely enjoyable. Arsenal have a bit of depth now. Defence-wise, you've got Luiz, who made a debut as well, partnering Socrates, was it?
Yeah.
How do you feel he did?
Well, I kind of wanted Chambers to start initially, but then I can understand why we're bringing in Luiz. We've got a couple tough fixtures coming up.
It's due to Chambers, who's, in my personal opinion, man of the match performance in your first game of the season against Newcastle.
Yeah, but I feel obviously it's a bit hard because if we've got teams like Liverpool and Tottenham coming up, you kind of want your best players. You want Luiz to get a game under his belt so we can make a proper decision on who's going to be playing. And to be fair, you know, I think he played well.
He did play well.
Comfortable on the ball. He plays the Emery style at passing out the back. And I like what I see so far of him.
I feel like the first goal we could have done a bit better with, couldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit unfortunate because it took a deflection. Like, how was he really?
I suppose so. He'll get better with time. 100%. He's obviously got a lot of experience in that.
And he's got a gel with the squad. But for 8 million, you can't really complain. No. Like, he's like Premier League, Champions League, Europa League. He's got experience in all the major tournaments.
Yeah.
And he's a vocal presence as well. Something which, because when Koscielny was obviously team captain before he had his move to Bordeaux this summer, he wasn't a very vocal captain. Like he would do his job and he'd do it well, but he wasn't very vocal. Whereas David Luiz will, if he sees a problem that is causing faults within the team, he will shout it out and he will go over to the manager and he will go to the players. And that's what I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the armband a couple of times this season, even though he is new. Because who was it? Monreal that had the armband.
Monreal has had the armband. It's usually between him and Xhaka, I think. It's going to be. Luiz might get the armband, but I personally think it would have to be to the later stages of the year.
Yeah.
I don't think you can give an armband straight to
a brand new transfer.
A brand new player, in the team. So I guess moving on to the Aston Villa versus Bournemouth game. What do you guys take of that? The score ended 2-1 to Bournemouth. Aston Villa was obviously home, first game of the season.
Another loss.
Playing at home.
Appearing to struggle, aren't they? I mean, I thought they'd probably do a bit better, seeing as they were at home. But Bournemouth are a good side. They can't be underestimated. Harry Wilson on loan for Liverpool, scoring quite a good goal in that match.
He looks like a great prospect. Yeah,
he does.
I would be very shocked to see that move become permanent.
Would you?
Yeah, because he seems like they've always had these players floating there or thereabouts. Like for example, Adam Lallana. I mean, I know again, like we were talking about, a few players from the Arsenal squad has suffered with injuries. Harry Wilson isn't the worst player to have coming off your bench at all.
No.
And Shaqiri's getting on a bit, and it looks like he's handed in a transfer request from what I saw on the internet earlier. I don't know whether it's an official transfer request or he's just stated that he would like to leave the club. But Harry Wilson wouldn't be a bad shout.
He wouldn't, no. That's surprising that Shaqiri. Shaqiri wasn't really used that much last season, was he? But he's a great player.
Well, no, he had a string of games where he was playing. And he was actually rather good. But the thing is when you're playing second and sometimes third fiddle to the likes of Mo Salah and Sadio Mane, people are just not going to give you the credit you deserve, because when you've got superstars of that calibre, that's all they want to see.
Yeah.
So
and obviously Tom Heaton, the new Villa keeper, giving away the penalty.
Which
for the first goal.
By Josh King.
Yeah, that was a poor error, wasn't it, from Heaton? He came out, was in no man's land and fouled the striker. So it was a definite penalty in my opinion.
100%. I agree.
Yeah, it's just a silly error really. It's kind of unfortunate for him. Obviously, it's new team, new.
Yeah. He might get better through the season, I'm sure. People feel like they're going to struggle.
As well as that, I think another new player was Douglas Luiz. Played a defensive mid.
He scored,
and he scored a great goal. He did score a very good goal, but as a defensive midfielder, I think at the minute his fitness, I don't think it's up to the standards of the game. I feel he dropped off a lot physically towards the end of the game. Bournemouth were able to play through him. Obviously, he needs support, and I think he needs time to gel with his team. I remember for Bournemouth's second goal, he was put in a bit of an awkward position when the ball came to him. He had a player running onto him, but he tried a bit of skill, let it go through his legs. That went straight to a Bournemouth player in a ton of space, and unfortunately ended up as a goal. So.
I suppose it just sort of highlights the golfing class still, between Villa just come up and Bournemouth, who are established Premier League side now.
100%.
But I hope they do stay up, because I think Villa belong in the Premier League, really, in my opinion. So I hope
they have the history and they are a big club and stuff like that. And they do have the fan base. But the thing is like that. Sometimes it just comes down to quality of the squad, because if they were the only things that mattered, they wouldn't have been relegated in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say the same thing about Sunderland. They're still floundering in League One at the moment. So
no, definitely. Moving on to another game on Saturday. So let's talk about the Brighton West Ham one. So Ryan, your team, it finished 1-1.
It did. Javier Hernandez.
Yeah.
We didn't play well. we didn't play well, and I don't think we deserved to take the lead in that game. Trossard's goal was offside, but if VAR didn't exist, it would have been 2-1.
Yeah,
last year that would have been.
Yeah, that would have been a 2-1 match. Hernandez's goal was. I've seen a lot of people saying that it was good. I actually think it was lucky because he kicked it into the floor and it like bounced and like rolled in. I mean, at the end of the day, a goal's a goal. And at least we came. Brighton, famously our bogey team. We've not beaten them since they've been promoted. And having Brighton and Man City back to back is sort of like walking on broken shards of glass for us.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can go into Watford like with a bit more of a boost in morale, knowing that even though we wasn't good, we still managed to come out of it with something.
Yeah.
Lanzini looked amazing. Like Lanzini's looking back to his original self after obviously suffering that nasty cruciate ligament injury for the World Cup. Ogbonna was dreadful. Was absolutely dreadful. And when Fabian Balbuena is out of our team, you can definitely see that we are a weaker side, especially at the back. And our fullbacks, Ryan Fredericks is unbearably inconsistent because he will either be one of the best fullbacks in the league or the worst because he relies so much on his pace rather than his strength and his tackling and marking ability that he will get all the way up the pitch, lose the ball and then not track back because he reminds me a lot of weirdly enough because he used to play alongside him as well at Fulham. Ryan Sessegnon, who obviously everyone was hyping him as a left back and he's more of a left winger now. And that's a position that I think Ryan Fredericks would thrive more in. And I do believe that even though his age is a factor now, I do believe that Pablo Zabaleta will probably be a better shout to start with. Because even though he's not going to be bombing it up and down the wings, when you have players like Felipe Anderson and Andrei Yarmolenko, they can take that work rate off of him. Pablo Fornell's our new summer signing from Villarreal. He can do that sort of thing. Mikel Antonio can do it. Mikel Antonio can do it very well as well because Mikel Antonio has got unbelievable strength and stamina.
I like Antonio. He's a good player, yeah.
The thing I like about Antonio the most is it's not his physical attributes, it's his versatility. Because you can play him on the wing, through the centre, up top. Like he's played as a right back. So Issa Diop is the only, apart from Fabian Balbuena, but obviously he didn't feature. Issa Diop was the only person in our backline the other day that actually looked like a defender.
Yeah.
Masuaku looked weak even going forward. Masuaku did not look good. He's another one like Fredericks. He's very, very inconsistent.
Yeah.
And Fabianski, again, like dragged us out of the darkness because he has been one of our best acquisitions in a long, long time.
He's a good keeper, yeah.
I mean, statistically, the last season, statistically, like the best goalkeeper saved more shots than any other keeper in the league. I mean, that can be put down to our shaky defence as well, of course, because we're shipping more shots. But to save, I think it was 167 by the end of the season is unreal. That
to push Adrian out of the team as well. I mean, I thought Adrian was very good.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was more second choice last season, and now at Liverpool. But yeah, I think Fabianski's done a great job at West Ham.
100%. I'm really, and the fact that we got him for only 7 million as well. Like it was. I mean, he's 33, so he has got like that age factor coming in. But of course, he's a goalkeeper, so physical attributes waning down doesn't have as much of an effect. Obviously, it has some sort of counter effect, which is understandable. But it's good to see that he's maintained the form that he had from last season. Shipping 5 to Man City was not his fault.
No.
Again, our defence completely left him on his own, and there's only so much you can do.
Exactly.
I want to make a comment because I feel like a big part of the problem in your team currently at the minute is defensively in the midfield. I feel like you guys lose that battle very easily.
Yeah.
Currently, I mean, obviously you don't have Noble at the minute.
Noble's
He's out injured, but he's still, he's like 32 now.
32.
He can still put in shift in, but how many games is he going to be able to play this year consistently in that middle? You've got, as defensively in your midfield, you've only got Rice.
Definitely Rice.
You know,
who is very, very good. See, I will always say it as it is. I do think people overrate Declan Rice. They're saying that he's the best holding midfielder that people have seen since called Makelele, and like comparisons like that, I don't think are right because he's a 20-year-old kid. And don't get me wrong, maybe he could develop into that, but at the moment he can't be expected to hold that midfield down on his own, and you can't put, like, for example, this game against Brighton, he started in defensive midfield alongside Jack Wilshere, who is an attacking-minded player.
This is why I think, like, you're saying he can't be put there on his own, but that is actually what's happening. It looks like you've got a lot of attacking players. You look around him, Wilshere and everyone else above him. Wilshere's sitting next to him, but everyone else above him, they're not coming back. Snodgrass isn't able to put shifting back and forwards anymore. Wilshere is rightly an attacking player. He's also, I feel like, because of his injury record, he got subbed off at half time. His fitness levels. I don't think he likes to play in that position either. He needs to be playing more forward, and like you say, you shouldn't be putting Declan Rice on his own. I don't think any team can afford to just have one defensive midfielder. I think we need to be especially teams like West Ham.
There is only one defensive midfielder that I think can do that on their own, and I think that's N'Golo Kante. I don't think any other defensive midfielder on this.
You say that, but we'll get into Chelsea in a second. But so far it hasn't seemed to work with just. I know it's early on, but I feel like as teams nowadays they need to be working essentially as a team. 2 blocks of 4 at least.
We've been playing like an odd formation that at some points really looks like a 4-1-5 because obviously we'll start with Fabianski, and Diop and Balbuena are an amazing centre-back partnership, and they did really well last season. Our fullbacks, apart from Zabaleta and Ben Johnson, who's a really good youth prospect who did feature once last season against Man City, the one that we lost 1-0 via a penalty. And he looks like he could be great. I don't trust Cresswell anymore. Every time I've seen him, he's looked poor. Masuaku has glimpses of greatness, and then the next game he will just throw it all away and look like a League Two player. Frederick's the same again. Zabaleta is the only one of our fullbacks I fully trust.
I think at your defence now, they may not be top quality in some areas, but I feel is somewhat of an unfair criticism they're getting because they're not getting help by their midfield. They're constantly under pressure, and if you look at the second goal, and if you look past maybe the 60th minute, defensively, the midfield seemed to have run out of energy. 100%. The second goal. The ball was lifted over the top. No one has run back. Not right. Rice seemed to have run out of steam. Snodgrass, I always assumed he would have run out of steam by this time. The other players as well in the midfield don't seem so defensive to begin with. I feel like that's something your team are going to struggle with.
Yeah, we don't have enough tenacity at the back, and also can I just point out that I think even risking playing Carlos Sanchez is ridiculous because he's been given so much time, so much opportunity, and so many chances by Pellegrini, and he has never, apart from one goal against, I think it was Altac, which I think is a Swiss team, in pre-season, he has not done anything at our club apart from bad stuff. And I know it's harsh to criticise. Like, he's a professional footballer, which is understandable. However, seeing it not just through the eyes as a fan, but as a neutral, like Carlos Sanchez, I don't think is up to the standard of the Premier League. I also think Javier Hernandez, even though I love him, should not be playing up front on his own. He should be up there as part of a two with Sebastian Haller, or if Haller is not available, he should have been put up front with Mikel Antonio. Because he's not receiving the short service that, I mean, he's a poacher. He scored 61, I think, Premier League goals. Every single one of them has been from inside the box. Every single one of them. So the thing is, he's not getting that service in from the box. And when our creative players such as Manuel Lanzini and Pablo Fornal are not that physically imposing, that poses a problem. But it will be good to get Sebastian Haller back, because even though, don't get me wrong, we got absolutely annihilated by City, and I understand that, but they are, in my opinion, the best, if not the second best team in the world at the moment, at a club level. Sebastian Haller looked great. He wasn't getting the service, but when he got on that ball, he's strong, he's quick, he has great control. And I think attacking-wise, we're going to be absolutely fine. It's just defensively, I get really worried. Going from the defensive midfield back to the line, that's what worries me.
Yeah, I think moving to the next game at Goodison Park, Everton 1-0 to Watford. Josh, what do you make of that result?
Everton, I think I was watching Match Today at the weekend and stuff, and they said Everton should be aiming for a top 6 finish this season. I think that's probably fair with the amount of money they've spent and stuff. They have got a good squad, so they probably should be aiming for that. So it was a good 1-0 win. Watford, on the other hand, they not started well. Obviously 3-0 loss last week to Brighton, who no one would have seen coming really.
Yeah, no, this has shocked me with Watford, because Javi Gracia did a great job with Watford last season. Yeah. And I don't, it all seems to have run out of time. I mean, they made good signings. I mean,
they've kept their players like De La Feu and obviously Troy Deeney.
And Duo Corey, like they kept
Corey,
in. Signing Sarr, I think Sarr's a great signing. I think Welbeck, I don't think it was a great signing as much as it was a shrewd one. Because getting Welbeck on a free signing, if he can remain fit, he will be a good asset. Because I think him playing alongside Andre Gray will be quite a good front two.
Yeah.
So I think they would bounce off each other quite well. But Bernard's a good player. See, the thing is with Everton at the moment, there's currently the fight to be the best of the rest, which is basically us, Leicester, Wolves, and Everton. And to be fair, Everton, I wouldn't put at the top of that. I would currently put Leicester. I think they're the best team out of the 4. I think they have the most depth, and I think they have the most talented individual players, taking away Ruben Neves from Wolves.
They do, yeah.
So I think, like with the likes of Yuri Tielemans, James Maddison, like they're brilliant. Their right back, Ricardo Pereira, or Pereira, I don't know how you pronounce his surname, but Ricardo, he's great. The only player that worries me in that Leicester squad, which we will get onto later, I will explain more in depth, is Sionku, their centre back, the young Turkish lad, because he hasn't filled that void that Harry Maguire has left. But obviously we'll discuss that more. But yeah, I think Everton. I think judging by the current trajectory of some of the top 7. If you put like Wolves in that category, Everton, they could definitely stake a claim for top 6.
Top 6, Everton, you think?
I mean, I think that should be their target. They should definitely be aiming for that. I don't think they should be too disappointed if they don't get there, but they should definitely be aiming to get that. I think a good season for them will be getting a top 6. I mean, you obviously got teams,
European football at least.
Teams like United, Chelsea, I guess even Arsenal. They're sort of still coming together. I think more so Chelsea. So there is room there for them to fight for that position.
100%. I think that this is probably, if any of these teams, like the 4 that I mentioned earlier, or even like stranger things have happened, even one of them outside of that, like maybe a Newcastle find their feet or something like that. Like, I think this, if any team outside of the Big 6 are going to crack it this season, it will be this season. I think this will be their best opportunity.
Definitely. We'll get on to Newcastle now, seeing as you just mentioned them. They suffered a 3-1 defeat away to Norwich.
Shocking.
Don't think we saw that one coming either. Pukki getting a hat-trick for Norwich. They didn't start last week, but then again they were against Liverpool. But yeah, very surprising result. And for Pukki to get 3 as well, it's quite interesting. But came out of the blue, really, didn't it?
Yeah, it did, but it didn't as well. You know, if you ever watched him last season in the Championship, I think he got top goal scorer that year in the Championship.
Oh.
He was definitely up there with a lot of goals, and I think he's just brought that form into this season so far. I think I read a stat. It's 26 years since a Norwich player did that in the top league.
Yeah, I think it was. He's going to be dangerous this season.
Was this the season that Norwich finished like 3rd? And it was still 2014.
Yeah.
I believe the only team to ever finish in the top 4 with a negative goal difference.
Yeah, he will be dangerous this season though, Pukki.
Yeah, I do like Pukki. I like his plans. I like his playing style, and like I didn't realise like how strong he was, like physically. He can shake a player off with ease.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's good to see Norwich like find their feet, because they're very good at bringing through youth players. I mean, for example, like Max Aarons is such a good prospect. Well, I mean, if you can still call him that. I mean, he was phenomenal in the Championship last season, and I am surprised that he is still there, because I heard rumours of like a few teams being in for him in the summer. But yeah, I think Norwich did really well against the Newcastle team that got rid of the best manager they've had since Bobby Robson, to give all of the money to, even though I don't have, like, I'm not saying I have a vendetta against Steve Bruce, but they gave all that money to a Championship manager.
I think Newcastle, you know, struggling a little so far at the start of the season. They haven't really seemed to found their feet, really. You know, obviously they played against Arsenal. They didn't score. They scored here, but it was, you know, it was a consolation goal. The game was pretty much over. It was nicely taken by John Joe Shelby, but the game was already won, and I feel like they just lost it in the middle of the park, really.
Yeah, that defeat's going to shake their confidence a little bit, I think. We'll move on to Southampton against Liverpool.
This was a shocker for me. I was very surprised with what was going on in this game, I must admit. I don't know what's going on with Liverpool at the moment. Like it's the same with City. I don't know whether it's just like where it's the beginning of the season and like they've had the Super Cup and the Community Shield and like a busy schedule and stuff. But the thing is Liverpool, I mean, don't get me wrong, they won their first game 4-1. But there were certain parts of that game that they didn't look like the better team, and they were playing a team that were playing their first match in the Premier League in like 3 seasons. So the thing is like, I don't think they're at their best, and the thing that worries me is that where literally everyone is saying, oh, it's a 2-horse race, no one else is going to finish first or second, it's going to be City and Liverpool. Yeah. I think the teams might be getting a bit complacent.
Yeah, I think Liverpool are more at that stage where they're just getting the job done now, aren't they? Because obviously, I know it's still early in the season, but they did. They still got the job done against, you know, Norwich, Chelsea in midweek, and Southampton this weekend.
Yeah, I don't think there's too much you can really complain about it. Really, they're getting their results.
Front 3 again are performing.
You playing tennis or?
No, we're just doing something on the phone. Well, I was going to try and get a drink earlier.
Right, okay, it's going again. Had to pause it for a second then.
I think Southampton, I think they did well. You know, they were always in the game. It felt like, well, when it did go 2-0, it looked like Liverpool had it comfortable. Obviously, with the mistake Adrian made, Southampton
back in it,
back in it. Danny Ings. It was
kind of Liverpool's fans' fears worst realised, because obviously with Alisson injured, they were worrying that goalkeeper might be their weakest position, and Adrian wouldn't be sort of up to the task of leading a team to a title challenge. But
there was also a risk that he wouldn't be able to play as well, wasn't there? Like
he got injured by a fan.
Yeah, by a fan.
Yeah,
and they've haven't Liverpool signed what's his name, Andy Lonergan. Danny Lonergan.
I'm not sure. It may have done.
They signed like a fourth choice goalkeeper because obviously,
They have. You're right.
their third choice is injured and they can't recall Loris Karius from Lyon.
I see.
I mean, when I was watching Adrian play, like on the ball. Okay, so Liverpool do like to play out of the back a bit. He obviously lost the ball very easily for the goal, but there was another time in the first half where he did something similar. He got away with it, but he gave the ball away. So I don't know. There might be a bit of pressure on him there if he's being asked to play like that out on the pitch.
This was a problem when Slaven Bilic took over and he turned Adrian into. Essentially, he wanted Adrian to be a sweeper keeper when he isn't. Adrian is a goalkeeper, and that there was a lot of goals. I mean, like I can't really gauge it. I mean, he played a bit of time in the Norwich game. I mean, it was about 60 minutes of the Norwich game, and then he played this one, and he played in the Super Cup final. And I can only take it from experiences of when he was playing for us. Like he can make mistakes, but the thing is, the mistakes he can make can be rectified. It's just like it's the same old thing. It's not like he's making freak mistakes that like just like freaks of nature. It's mistakes that can be. But again,
do you think he's up to the task of playing in a team like Liverpool who are pushing for the title?
I think he's one of the best second choice goalkeepers in the league. However, I don't think he. Say for example, if Alisson like picked up a cruciate or like a broken leg or something like that, I think Liverpool would be in big trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, how long is Alisson out for? Was it about 4 weeks, isn't it?
I believe so. I mean, they've just got to play a good team, and then you'll really find out. Like maybe when they play City, and if they still have Adrian, then they may come unstuck. So
I feel like they're doing well at the minute. I don't think there's too much room for criticism for him. You know, like you say, they gain.
they're getting the job done.
They beat Chelsea. He obviously saved a penalty.
Yeah.
You know, he shows mentally that he is there. He is ready. Okay. He's made a few mistakes. You know, last game, but I just feel like that's just not part of his game.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the only problem as far as saving can go.
Like actual shots.
Shot stopping. I think he's got that. It's just being able to play it out the back. That's the only thing I can see being a problem, if anything.
However, on the plus side, he does have very good ball playing defenders in front of him. Especially if Joe Gomez is the one that's partnering Virgil van Dijk. I mean, Virgil van Dijk is a centre back that is good at everything. I mean, he is, in my opinion, the best centre back in the world at the moment. I think he's overtaken the likes of like Ramos and Hummels and stuff like that, because there's just so much variation to his game. Joe Gomez, great, and Andy Robertson like blew my mind last season when Liverpool signed him. I was so confused because when he was playing for Hull, I didn't think he was amazing. But when Liverpool signed him, I was like, I don't understand why they've done this. And last season, he completely shut my mouth because I thought he was the best left back in the league, maybe the world. And Trent Alexander-Arnold, like, you don't really need to say anything about Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's a kid that came up and was instantly great.
I was listening to, I think it was TalkSport yesterday, and the presenter said that at the moment, not one Manchester United player would get into the Liverpool squad. Do you agree with that?
No.
Who is there in United, do you think, that could?
I personally agree with that. I think Liverpool's squad, they were talking about Trent Alexander-Arnold in particular, compared to Wan-Bissaka. I would go with Alexander-Arnold.
I think Alexander-Arnold, I mean, I think last season, there was very few to divide them. I mean, if you look at stats, like, Aaron Wan-Bissaka was completing more tackles a game, but the thing is Trent Alexander was completing more dribbles and more like key passes. Alexander-Arnold's XG was higher than Wan-Bissaka's. I mean, it's just whether you want a more defensive-minded fullback or a more attacking-minded fullback. Personally, for Liverpool's style of football, I think Trent Alexander-Arnold is perfect for that. The only player, there is a player I think from United would get into the Liverpool squad, and I think that is Paul Pogba in central midfield.
See, I disagree. I think it's not a bad shout, but I still disagree. I feel that middle, you've got Henderson, Milner, and Wijnaldum.
Wijnaldum, and I think Wijnaldum is I think Paul Pogba is a better player than all three of them. I think Wijnaldum is the best. I think he would remain, and I think Henderson would remain. But I think I would replace, even though again versatility plays into it. Milner can literally play everywhere.
See, this is the thing. Like with Henderson and Milner, they both offer such a good leadership role in that team. I feel like Pogba is somewhat the opposite. He doesn't offer any of that. In fact, he could be more of a problem. And I think with a team like Liverpool, the way Liverpool are structured, most of their the togetherness in the team, I think that all comes down to how the team plays for each other, how the leaderships in the team, the leaderships like Van Dijk, Milner, and Henderson, those sort of personalities in the team. That's what makes Liverpool. Pogba doesn't fit that personality of a Liverpool team, and I feel like that can cause a difference in that team, and I'm not sure if that will be a good thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah. We've got one more game to focus on from Saturday, and it was a big one because there was a big debate that came out of this game. It was Man City against Tottenham.
Over VAR.
2-2. City had a goal ruled out late on for VAR, but let's talk about the goals that did stand, first of all. So obviously City took the lead, didn't they? And Tottenham kept coming back 1-1, and then 2-2. Lamela with a particularly good goal for Tottenham.
It sort of pretty much came out of nothing. I think the game just started running again. It looks like City sort of just switched off for a second. They allowed Lamela with too much space. I'm not too sure what Ederson was doing a bit too much off his line, because that ball wasn't in the corner when it went in. Ederson was just off his line, and players like Lamela do have the quality. If you make mistakes like that, they will.
He's a good player, I rate Lamela.
On a side note, it is good to see Lamela back because, obviously he wasn't getting much of a look in last season, and bearing in mind when they signed him, he was like their record signing. He was meant to be this big thing, and then he sort of got. I wouldn't say forgotten about, but he sort of got pushed to the side because obviously you've got the likes of Christian Eriksen and Heung-min Son set the world on fire, Dele Alli and stuff like that, so he wasn't getting much of a look in. But it's good to see him getting game time. I do like Lamela and I do rate him.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that they aren't starting Giovanni Lo Celso though, I must admit, because I think he is one of the best central midfielders in the world.
Yeah, I mean they did get him on loan, didn't they? And hopefully they'll ease him into the team. But yeah, Lamela equalising after Sterling had put City ahead. Then Aguero with the penalty, and Lucas Moura header from a corner, equalising again for Tottenham. Yeah, they weren't the better side, were they? City were the better side, but Tottenham stayed in there.
Well, Tottenham were just clinical. They just scored their chances, and I feel that's good on them really, because
Pochettino magic.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, I think Lucas Moura still has something to prove in this Spurs team. He's not consistently getting first team action, and he's showing his quality. I think it's just consistency, really. Can he do it week in, week out? And I think that's what's probably not. That's probably what's put him on the bench.
Yeah. He was unlucky not to start the Champions League final, really, in my opinion, having scored that hat-trick.
Yeah, against Ajax, correct.
Would you guys have started him?
Yes.
Yeah, in the final last year. Yeah.
If you score a hat-trick in a Champions League semi-final when it's that close to the wire, you have got to be flying sky high. Your morale's going to be up to the limit. And I personally believe that the players that play the best in your team in the last match should be playing in the next match. They should be playing until they don't play well.
I guess I can understand that principle, but when it comes to a final, I feel like it's who you value to the best player for that.
I agree, and I do think
game.
in that situation it was Lucas Moura, because I think he's a lot better than Musa Sissoko.
Well, see, that's the thing. I wouldn't, if I was to bring Moura in, I wouldn't have traded him for Sissoko. I think Sissoko is like a proper central midfielder there, does the defensive work that the team needs.
I agree, but
Moura is more attacking.
No, I agree. Moura is a right winger, but that is also where Sissoko was getting deployed.
Yeah, but against the Liverpool team, I guess there is one or two ways you could play it. You could sort of play a little bit more risky, not have that defensive aspect, or you can sort of play it a bit more safe until, because it's the first final for the team. A lot of defenders mentally, it's a big day for them. Are they up for it? Would they rather have some support at the start of the game to settle in, 100%. Or would they rather, be more exposed without so much help?
This is why I think the signing of Tungai and Ndombele was brilliant. I think that in that situation, we're looking at the team's weaknesses. I think that was the perfect player for them, because he's great defensively, but he's also got great ball distribution. And I don't think Eric Dyer is amazing. I don't think he's bad, but I think he's very average.
Yeah.
So bringing in someone of a higher calibre, who is pretty much better at everything, is the way for a team that consistently for the last 4 or 5 years has been chasing the Premier League title, when before that they were like a mid-table club, if that. Sometimes they were very far down the table, and like if you remember the days of Juan de Ramos, like they was not good.
No.
But for a team that's chasing that, I think in the top 6, I know people keep on talking about like Rodri and how Cancelo to Man City. I actually think Tottenham, out of the top 6, had the best transfer window, including Arsenal.
They did, yeah. They had a good window.
The thing is with Arsenal is, I do think they signed very well. I think the players they signed were well, but I don't think they addressed all of their key areas. Whereas with Tottenham, the places that they had problems, they went out and they bought the players to fix those problems. I think the only thing that they didn't buy that they should have is a backup to Harry Kane, a proper backup that isn't Fernando Llorente.
Going back to the City game against Tottenham, what did you guys make of Rodrigo's performance?
I thought he was quite good. Fairly solid. I don't think City will have any problems really. I mean, they're a quality team anyway, so I think any addition to them, even if it's just like a Championship addition, I think he's going to look amazing in that team really.
I mean, I think it was great to sign a player who is exactly the same as Fernandinho to replace Fernandinho, because that fulcrum, like Fernandinho, a lot of people, because he's not flash and because he's not like flary and stuff like that, people don't go, oh, Fernandinho, that's my favourite player. But he is one of their most important players, because he is the fulcrum of that side. He is the one that marshals the midfield. And Rodri is very good. My only problem with Rodri, which has occasionally been a problem with Fernandinho, but what he's not got to be consistent at is he does look a bit reckless sometimes, especially against us. I didn't see it as much against Tottenham, but against us, he was putting out some fouls that if the ref or VAR would have called, he may have been booked and or sent off. Like there were some cheeky elbows and stuff in there. So he's got to tone that bit down out of his game. But aside from that, I can't think of any other negatives. I think it's great.
Definitely. I think obviously the major talking point in that game was the last minute goal, which was disallowed. We will do a separate video on VAR because it's quite a lengthy topic, but just briefly, let's go over the goal that was disallowed. So do you think yes or no? Short answer.
I think no. I don't think it should be. I don't think it should be disallowed.
No.
I think it was a goal. I think it should have been allowed. I think it should have finished 3-2.
That makes 3 of us then, because I think no as well. I think it's, again, I'm going to match the day too and stuff. Like Tim Cahill was talking about, it takes the enjoyment away from the game. Obviously, you get up and celebrate, but you don't know if it's a goal or
especially
not.
if you're there. I mean, I haven't experienced it yet. I haven't been to a match this season because I've been obviously busy with work and stuff. However, I can imagine the atmosphere, especially a team like ours or Arsenal, not as much Chelsea, but a team that are as vocal and as hyped as your West Hams, your Arsenals, your Evertons, your Liverpools, that sort of thing. To be up and celebrating, and then the TV comes on and it's checking goal, and everyone's just standing there. It sort of takes the air out of it. It and then when it just is deflated, and you sort of lose the atmosphere of the game. I mean,
I think you're right. I think that should have been allowed because it wasn't, a clear handball. It probably brushed him, but it's not enough to say it's not a goal, in my opinion. I think it should have stood.
I think that's the most important thing, because there's other aspects in the game where little things, players can get away with, tiny bits of when players are holding players or pulling them slightly, little kicks sometimes. These things, especially in the box when it's a free kick or a corner, you have players holding on to each other, all of this pulling, all of this grabbing. None of that is given as a foul. None of that, and you could argue, if you think it should be disallowed, that handball, as best as I think it could be, it's equivalent to that, and so if those things aren't going to be given as fouls, then I don't think it's fair to then say this should now be given as a free kick or something.
It was so vague as well. There was barely contact. Barely contact. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there was no contact, but it was barely.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was fair to have the goal taken away for it.
No, I do agree. Right, let's go into the two games that were yesterday then. We'll start with the early kick-off. Newly promoted Sheffield United, getting a big win for them.
In a weird way, my favourite game of the entire weekend.
Yeah, I was very happy for Sheffield United.
Yeah.
They 1-0 against Crystal Palace.
They did well.
Yeah.
And they played well as well.
Yeah, they did.
It's not like they scored a lucky goal and then put 11 men at the back.
No.
They played. Their passing was very good. I mean, they did make some slip-ups. Big talking point from this, Will Zaha does look like he doesn't care anymore.
Yeah.
He looks like he's done.
I do agree. I was going to mention that, yeah.
Apparently there was a players' meeting organised by Mamadou Sakho where he basically said to Zaha, listen, January is the next transfer window, you're still at Palace, you can't go anywhere else yet, just play your heart out like you have done all this time until the January transfer window, then try and get your move. And apparently Zaha was all for it, but he just looked like he didn't care.
Yeah.
I was impressed. The only Palace player, actually no, tell you what, there were two Palace players that did impress me in the game, and that was Luka Milivojevic, as always. I think he's a very, very solid presence in midfield. And Andros Townsend was doing his best to try and make something happen, but he had nothing around him to do it.
Yeah.
I think as far as Sheffield are concerned, they had a great game.
Yeah.
They controlled that game, especially when they took the lead, and around the 60th minute, it looked like they had the control. They mentally prepared and they were up for it. Crystal Palace just, they looked like already sort of defeated, and it showed
They didn't really create many chances, did they? Really?
No, not really.
From the beginning, they just they was only there. I know this might sound, I don't know if this makes sense, but the way I see it is in that game they looked like they was only there because they had to be.
They had a couple of chances at the start, but it was just as the game went on, it looked like more and more Sheffield took control.
Yeah.
And I think one player that sort of stood out for me in Sheffield was Norwood.
Oh, Oliver Norwood.
I think watching him play, he did very really well controlling the tempo of the game, playing the passes. Some of the passes he's made were really good. He had some vision in him, and I was.
I also
really
think Ollie McBurney. I didn't really watch him when he played for Swansea last season, but he looks promising. When he came on, he did look promising.
Freeman as well.
Freeman
played as well.
It's very good. Assist for the goal, but it's good to see them back in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Right, one more game to go, and that is my team, who we seem to be sort of floundering at the minute. It's Chelsea. They drew 1-0 against Leicester City. As we were talking earlier, Leicester City, a good side, not to be underestimated, really. You know, top 6 aims for them as well. But talking about the game, so Chelsea got off to a flyer, great start, putting Leicester under pressure.
So high up.
Got the goal through Mason Mount. He played very well, in my opinion. Best player for Chelsea on the day.
You, in the first 20 minutes of that game, before indeed his equaliser, you looked unbelievable. You looked nothing like the team that lost 4-0 to United. You look so different. You look so positive. You look so progressive. You look like a Champions League team again. That's what you look like. Oh. But after Ndidi got that equaliser, it's like you gave up. You just couldn't care less anymore.
Their heads dropped. I think, you know, being a young team definitely played a factor. You know, they were Leicester all over us in the second half.
So I think I slightly disagree. I feel like Chelsea had a good half hour. It was after that they I mean, obviously they can't keep up the intensity throughout the game, but you know, they didn't control the game. You know, they allowed Leicester right back into it, and then, you know, for the rest of that half, Leicester felt comfortable, and then start of the second half, before the goal, I think Leicester just came out so much better, so much prepared, and you know, I kept seeing what's his name, Madison.
James Madison.
Yeah, James Madison.
Yeah.
Second half, constantly in space.
Yeah.
No one was picking him up.
No.
Not Kante, not Jorginho. No one was picking him up, and no one was saying to anyone. No one was telling anyone. Someone has to pick this guy up. Madison had so much time on the ball, many periods in the game, that I'm somewhat surprised that he didn't make more of the opportunities that he had.
Yeah, he definitely could have scored with one that I had in mind. So we got lucky in the end.
That's the thing with James Madison. He's so dangerous because he's equally as good at scoring as he is at creating.
Yeah.
And you can't allow a player with that skill set the amount of space that he was given, because he will run riot. If you give him enough opportunities, a player like that can destroy you.
Yeah.
Especially when you've got someone up front with like the pace and tenacity of Vardy.
Yeah.
Because if he loops that ball in, Vardy will run onto it and score it like he used to do when Leicester won the league. Danny Drinkwater would ping a ball over the top when the team used to fall asleep. He'd run onto it and score.
Yeah, no, we were lucky they didn't take probably as many chances as they should have. They only got the one goal, but Chelsea, as you say, you know, started with that high intensity, pressing, going forward, like lots of pace and energy shown. But at the end of the day, you know, it's pretty much a new Chelsea we're seeing now. You know, with the likes of Mason Mount, Tammy Abraham. Even Zuma back, you know, it's pretty much a new team that we're seeing. So, you know, it's going to take a lot of time for that team to sort of really, I suppose, challenge with the big teams. You know, be like what Chelsea should be. But I don't think people can expect that Chelsea will be like, you know, fighting on all fronts as much as they have done in recent seasons, because they're not the same team. They're young and inexperienced.
And also, it's the same with the manager. I mean, this is a baptism of fire for Lampard. I mean, he could not have got a worse time to become Chelsea manager. No transfers, like your best player leaving.
Yeah.
Like Hazard going, put a spanner in the work, and I don't understand why he sent out like on permanent and on loan like various of his players with like that experience when I couldn't bring it. Pulisic didn't really impress me yesterday.
Right. He did okay in midweek, but he didn't really play well yesterday. No, I agree.
My thing with Pulisic is I think you bought him because you knew Hazard was leaving and you thought he would be the replacement.
Yeah.
And I don't get me wrong. I think Pulisic when he was at Dortmund, I thought he was great. However, I just don't think he's the calibre of Hazard.
No,
and
I think that player. I mean, he's only 20.
I think the player of Hazard's calibre is going to be, with the money that you got for him, which I think in today's transfer climate is very low. I think it's going to be nigh on impossible to replace Hazard.
Yeah, I mean, definitely looks like that at the moment. What do you think, Sikander?
Well, Hazard is one of those players that is very hard to replace. and I think Chelsea have sort of taken a different route with this. And I feel this is where Lampard is actually suiting the role here because of this route. They've got quite a few youngsters in this team. Okay, they knew they weren't allowed to buy players. Okay, in the summer transfer, so it's like looking at managers who would be able to do the best with this sort of team. Lampard, I think he's coming out and saying he wants to give younger players a chance. He was with Mount at Derby last year as well, so he already knows how influential he could be.
Yeah. And the centre back, Tomori.
Yeah.
He didn't go back out on loan, did he? He's still with him.
No, he's with Chelsea now this season.
The thing is there's definitely talent there. It's just the only thing that's lacking is experience.
Yeah, I mean, let's touch on the fact that people are expecting, it is Chelsea, so everyone's been like top 4, but what are realistic expectations for Chelsea this season?
Seventh.
I think it's top 6.
6th and 7th.
I feel like they should definitely still be challenging for top 6. I think if they get top 4, that's really, really good.
Yeah.
But they should be content, or at least happy with top 6 in this first year.
Yeah.
Because of the circumstances, because of losing their best player, because of the being unable to buy in transfer window, having someone like Lampard as manager as well, which I do think that has benefits, but taking all of this into account, you have to understand teams around Chelsea, the top 2 teams, and then you've got the teams like Spurs, United and Arsenal. They're all progressing, where Chelsea have had a standstill.
Going neutral,
Yeah.
So I think a disappointing season for Chelsea would be finishing out of Europe in general. I think a team like Chelsea, for no transfers, youngsters coming in, a manager that's only had one full season of football under his belt, admittedly he has the affinity with the club, but he's still not highly experienced. I think you can't be disappointed if you finish 7th.
I agree.
Because I think it's still European football. I don't think you can challenge for top 4 this season.
No,
I think the 4th spot is going to go to Arsenal. I think
Yeah.
United look good, but I still think there's a fair few glaring problems.
It'll be between Arsenal and United, won't it?
Yeah,
Really?
100%. And I think, but see, the thing is that this, it could go one of two ways with this Chelsea squad. You could be there or thereabouts, or you could finish 12th. It could be a disastrous season, because we've seen it happen before when you've had a better squad.
Yeah, no, yeah.
The thing, anything can happen, but I think you can't be disappointed with European football regardless of what position you finish in.
I think the difference now and that season where you mentioned we finished 10th or something like that.
15, 16.
Yeah, I think the difference now is that there's less, in my opinion, I think there's less pressure. I don't know if you agree, but I think there's less pressure because it's not such a good team. We haven't got a really well-rated manager. So, I mean, as a Chelsea fan, I'm happy to, give Lampard lots and lots of time.
You've got to, yeah. I think
it's realistic.
I think this season is sort of a pass. Because I think he was eventually destined to go there. I think eventually it was either going to be him or Terry. I'm glad it's Lampard.
Yeah.
Because I think he's got more of a football in mind.
Yeah.
But what I don't want to happen, and I don't know if it will because of how revered he is at the club and because obviously the amount of stuff, but what I don't want to happen is I don't want you to end up having a bad season where, say, you finish 12th and then the fans revolt against Lampard.
Yeah, no.
That's what I don't want to happen because I don't think in any sense that would be fair.
What about Abramovich? Do you think he will give Lampard time?
It's tough to say. I mean, I just hope so. I think, Abramovich, he knows the situation. He must be thinking yes, Lampard will have a tough season. We've got to give him time. But, history hasn't proven that, has it? So I'm just hoping that Chelsea fans don't gang up on him and Abramovich doesn't,
The thing that I would argue with that, though, sorry for cutting in, but the thing that I would argue with that is Roman Abramovich, very savvy businessman, and he knows how much all of your fans love that man.
Yeah.
And they know that the fans, if something happens to Lampard, there's going to be backlash from the fans. Like, even from something as simple as merchandise sales, Chelsea fans, if it's got something to do with Frank Lampard on it, they will buy it.
Yeah.
Because he's a legend at your club. So the thing is I think a season where he's not allowed to sign anyone, because this isn't his squad. This is the remnants of a Jose Mourinho and Maurizio Sarri fusion squad. So he's not at the top. Aside from Mason Mount and Fikayo Tomori, he's not managed any of these players before.
No, that's
and he's
true.
not signed any of these players.
Yeah.
So you've got to give him this season. It would be ridiculously unfair to fire him if that happens. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
Back to the Chelsea and Leicester game. What did you think of? I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. The new Turkey fullback.
Sionko.
Sionko?
This is the guy that I mentioned earlier. I don't think he's filled the Harry Maguire-shaped void that was left there. He looks like he could be good, but he looks like, I don't think he's bad.
He had a decent game.
Yeah, I don't think he's bad. I just think he's inexperienced. I think that's the only problem. However, when they signed him, I think they signed him 17-18 season, and then they sent him out on loan a couple of times, or it might have been last season they sent him out on loan once. But he has been given the match experience, but the thing is that doesn't compare to this league. And if this is the first league that you're going to play in, the first top league, I think he went to the Serie B. I think he went to a team like Hellas Verona or something. I may be completely fabricating that. I can't actually remember where he went, but something pops in my mind about that. But yeah, he does look like he has potential, 100%. He does have potential, and he is going to make mistakes because he's not old. He's new to the league. He's new to the team. So it's just a matter of I think it would be unfair to judge him this early. I think you've got to give him a bit more game time. However, I think he has got big old shoes to fill.
Yeah. Josh, what do you think of Leicester's front three now? So they've got Vardy and they've got Maddison, but they also added to that with Perez. From Newcastle. What do you think of that front three?
I think Perez was a very good signing. Surprised Newcastle let him go, but he's a very good addition, I think, to Leicester. He can play through the middle. He can also play, on the side of the attack. So I think he's quite versatile in that respect. Can score goals. Obviously, we need to give him it's only the second weekend of the Premier League, so things will happen more with time. But Perez is a good goal scorer alongside Jamie Vardy. Vardy, as we know, can latch onto a ball and just put the ball on the net. So I think it's a good addition, and I think Leicester will do well with that front three. That's probably why they're expecting top six. Because they have got the ammunition up front.
They do.
So one more Premier League game to go. I don't think it's kicked off just yet. Wolves against United. But other than that is the Premier League roundup.
What's your prediction?
The lineup right now.
Predictions for the match.
So
I think 2-1 United.
I think I'm going to go for a draw. I think being at Molineux will go in Wolves' favour. I think probably a 2-2.
I think Wolves have done well with keeping some of their top players.
Yeah, they have.
I think Ruben Neves was the glaring one.
Raul
Jimenez, getting him on a permanent, and Leander Dendoncker, getting both of them on permanents was very good business.
And I think they're playing at home, against United. I think they can. A draw would be a reasonable result. I think like a 1-1, but I'm going to go for a 1-0 Wolves win.
Ooh, all different.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see the outcome.
It would be.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed this Premier League roundup. Thank you to Sikander and Ryan. And we'll see you soon. We're going to do another video on the VAR, so we'll see you very soon.